about what is consists of boroscopy, endoscopy service. As a quick introduction, you may have seen that on my shirt I have a Mobile Serve sort of brand, as opposed to my colleagues who are either Mobile or Mobile SHC. Mobile SHC is for a synthetic brand. Mobile Serve is actually the service brand that we want to use as a sort of an umbrella for all the services that we deliver for customers. So either directly or through contractors. Of course, there is a pretty long list of services that, for most of them, we are not able to deliver, but at least the catalog is pretty long. And anyway, whenever we want to deliver something that is definitely part of the service, we want to call it Mobile Serve. All the reports that Evan is working on are always stamped, or with your help, Giovanni, here within the country, are all stamped with this Mobile Serve name on the top. And one of the services that we talked about earlier, just before lunch, it's the MSLA. It's typically Mobile Serve lubricant analysis. So that's a big part of the service, and it's also very well widespread across the world. So that was the launch of the Mobile Serve brand. Started with the Mobile Serve lubricant analysis, or the MSLA acronym that we keep using, and we hope you will be used to as quickly as possible. So that's a quick of an explanation of why we put Mobile Serve in the first place. This boroscopy, I don't know how familiar you are with boroscopy. It depends if you are people who are from maintenance or just operators and so on, but it's just all what you're going to see here are some pictures that were used from boroscopic inspection that either you or other colleagues carried out on the field. I know that most of the maintenance people are, of course, equipped with such equipment, but not all of them. So I'll take you through. It is what, 3 p.m. now?
Yes.
We're supposed to close at 6:30, including question and answers, but within 20 minutes or so I should have covered this part. It's a fancy one. You have lots of pictures. I should have probably made a sort of a quiz. I didn't. So you have names of all the defects and the failings that are displayed or are described at the bottom of each picture. But for those who are not familiar with it, it's still worth a quick share. So as always, I think when you're dealing with rotating equipment, the lockout tagout procedure is absolutely paramount, all relating to safety. So you need to take safety measures regarding gas, first of all, to how to handle very sour gases like H2S and acids, but also the gas valves, obviously. You need all of those are part of what you're exposed to on the gas engine. So related equipment, explosion, temperature. Bumping, falling, slipping as well. So helmet, hard shoes at least. The lockout tagout procedure I started already. That's not always easy to have a proper lockout tagout procedure in place where you do.
Yes.
You do. But I mean, it's very frequent that whenever you show up on the plant, they tell you that's the red big button to press, but that's not what the lockout tagout procedure consists of. Actually, you're supposed to put a real lock on the cabinet and so on. And that's well, I see lots of acknowledgement from you gentlemen. It's not so frequent. So, but that's something that we do have to take extremely caution on. So boroscopy, boroscope inspection. Endoscopy is more, I think, is more for body and human health, and so on.
It's a Greek word, endoscopy.
Endoscopy.
Greek word.
Scope is probably endo is inside, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Or inside. Don't be nasty with me. I found the inside. See, you can put one stroke more on my vocabulary list. And scope is what is vision or look?
Scope is focus.
Focus.
In close.
Okay. So I failed that one. I could have made my own bibliography before. Well, typically you always have. These are pretty old generation ones. These ones are, very rigid probe where you put the gauge in. Personally, I think they are nice because when you basically you make them turn, in which directions you are looking at, which is absolutely not true when you have a very flexible probe, optical fiber with all these cables inside and so on. And at some point you just can't figure out where the 12 or 6 or 3 or 9 are, and it needs a bit of practice here because sometimes when you are at 3 and you want to go at let's say at 5, you cannot make it straight. You need to do because of the motors, you need to do all the other way around, and it's not that easy. But still pretty old generation in terms of image quality, obviously. So most of the time we have this device, portable screen that you can put around your neck, this sort of joystick sort of thing to activate and to action the cables inside. And here you have the electric fiber plus the lights. For some equipment you also have a lens which is with a 45 degree mirror, so that you can watch on the 90 degrees direction. That's quite helpful when you want to observe the valve seat, typically when you are just right after typically when you crank the engine and you put your probe down here, if it appears that admission or exhaust valves are open, you can directly see the recession. If there is recession, if there is enough ash deposits or not. So when performing a boroscopic inspection, and what do we want to pay attention to? Well, usually we do it when there is a sort of an issue. If you want if you don't want to completely open your engine, if you want to make a comparison baseline with the previous lubricant, typically it's good to take to have a picture of the baseline in order to allocate some issues to one product or the other. So that's a good idea of what's going on within the combustion chamber in terms of deposit control. What you will see is quite easy. You will have a clear, since you are going through the spark plug hole. Well, actually, in some recent engines and Yamaha engines, you don't have anymore to remove the pre-chamber and so on. There is a specific hole in which you put directly the probe. But the idea is, of course, to check the conditions of the liners, of the piston crown, the cylinder head, and also the valves, the valve seat, the valve face. That's what is basically visible within the combustion chamber. And coming back to what is not here, probably it's on the following slide. What is not visible with the boroscopic, of course, is the deposits on the top land, on the side of the piston crown, the deposits under the underground deposits, of course, are not accessible, the skirt, and nowadays we are paying more and more attention to the top ring, or if not the second ring deposits, due to this very shorter top land and the combustion and the BMEP increase that we discussed about earlier. So typically, provided that either the probe is coming from here or from let's say, inside a hole, you can only see the inside, and these ring grooves are just not accessible. So it requires a piston pull-out to really assess the level of deposits within the ring groove. That's the biggest limitation in terms of I don't know if you have a very big crankcase pressure increase and you want to see if you have some sort of bore polishing and so on, with lots of blow-by gases going through within the crankcase. A quick boroscopic inspection. Well, you just need to make sure that your engine is cooled down enough, and then you can check if you have some abnormal line wear that may explain high oil consumption, sudden high oil consumption, or wear, or abnormal operating condition, operating parameters. We tend to say that indeed it's one aspect of a bigger picture. So if you combine, let's say, all the engine criteria, the like temperature, the number of stops, plus the gas quality, plus all the data relating to the oil, I think the bigger the picture, of course, the better your assessment of the engine condition. So if you can combine very relevant and accurate used oil analysis results with engine data, it's quite easy for you gentlemen to have access to them, but for us not always. So combination of these three was quality, especially when we are dealing with the biogas gases. That's a big issue in terms of sourness and so on. But oil conditions, gas quality, engine operating conditions, all of this combined with the boroscopic inspections, it may lead you to a pretty thorough assessment of the conditions, and may help you quite effectively to find out the failure root cause that you may experience. So now let's start of the pictures. So you have you need to check comparatively spark plugs. Typically, this level of deposits is quite acceptable. Sometimes you see some spark plug falling due to the ash content, obviously. On the pre-chambers here, you can see that there is one which is showing some signs of leakage. Typically, as opposed to this sort of white ash deposit, the light snow is really very acceptable. When you find this sort of ash, now it's more on the turbo blades. It's more problematic. Here you have an issue. That's not something that we should find. Well, I think they speak for themselves, although Jeremy was talking earlier about the awning marks, which are extremely well seen here. I must admit that the very first boroscopic inspection that I attended, I said to myself, oh my goodness, what happened to these engines? You don't know what you don't know. Didn't get it. Well, I think you're joking, but didn't this happen to you as well? Well, okay, that's how it is. So, I mean, how would you consider this sort of where are we, by the way, here?
This is the line of the fire.
I was asking you.
The fire.
Εντάξει, πάντα κάθεται στην πρώτη γραμμή.
What was the language here?
He always sits in the first row, you know.
Yeah. The good pupils. So you're the bad ones at the end?
Always.
So come on the front row. Yeah, that's the fire combustion unit fire. So from the here. That's a big stretch.
Coming from, because it's not varnish, correct?
This is
That's the effect of varnish. That may an effect due to either a particle that get detached from wherever, or a crown deposit that's basically pumping or that is crouching vertically. At least when you see this, you know where the vertical and where the horizontal. With this one, you put a coin. Nobody knows in this room which direction the piston is supposed to be. Well, probably this sort of way.
Yes, diagonal.
Yes, it's supposed to be like this and like this.
The top must
Yeah,
be
yeah.
the
So
left corner.
this way or that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
You may see some little scratches here. I'm not even sure. But it's when you. I think visually it's not very easy when you see a scratch. We tend to say, does that cross the owning marks, or is it very superficial sort of thing, or is it a deep one? It's not so easy unless you are you have a very sharp edges like this. This one seems to be pretty deep. These ones, obviously, I mean, look. I was talking earlier about bore polishing. Here, it's a sort of, especially here, mirror effect. You have absolutely no more owning marks. So,
This liner.
this is a liner, yeah. All of those are liners, and you see that basically the scuffing has occurred on all these areas here, from here to here. You see still some honing marks right here, but here it's basically it's flat. It's grayed out, so it's completely erased. It means that you, apart from the piston sizer, you may have seen some higher oil consumption as well. If the process of wear was slow enough, otherwise you have a piston sizer, and then your engine is down. Heavy lacquers. We talked earlier about siloxanes recombining or being transformed into oxide of silicons. That's how it looked like. Most of the time, I never saw that too much, but I saw the combustion chamber on the piston head lots of soft materials, because they are combined with a very high hash level product. Combined with this, you always have a lot of cloudy deposits on the piston, and it's just this is on the liner. That's the effect on the liner. And
this kind of effect like this sometimes similar. I did see sometimes in one time, especially last year, in one engine that was working in a wrong fuel ratio operating condition with a lot of nitration, and the appearance on the liner is very similar to this really film of
orange light.
Orange.
So do you think the comment here is wrong then, or is it nitration that we see here, or is it
No,
siloxane?
this should be at least where I thought there was the inspection was siloxane, but nitration is similar. So
this is acidic attack. I guess these are little holes.
yeah, and also the man this color
Discoloration.
Yeah, discoloration.
This again is liner.
Yeah, it's the liner. So the vertical line is like this. The picture is not always vertical, of course. I mean, you need to do your best, but sometimes you have to rotate your head. This is good. This is very good, because you see that where you could have lots of deposit formation at the edge of the where it's of course hotter than the inside ball and so on. You don't have any deposit here. Apparently the ash layer thickness is quite limited and very homogeneous throughout the rest. Here some little parts have been removed, but it's very cosmetic, I would say. And plus you can combine the ash. That's a good picture because you combine the ash deposit plus the liner conditions, which looks perfectly fine with the owning marks. Everything is very bright. The owning marks are very light in colors, so no deposit whatsoever. Good picture. What else do we have here? So I think on the top here, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. High deposit. So valves as face deposits touch the piston. I don't see what the border is around the headgear, but here indeed we see a sort of stamping of the valve face probably on the piston head.
And around there, all the other shots even more clear.
Piston bowl containing water.
Yeah.
So it means rust or corrosion holes.
Also the bluish color. Something probably also from cooling system. Located. Yeah.
Water leakage. So here you have on the piston crown.
Yeah, between piston and
Ah, okay, yes. Okay, yes. So I see. I thought the liner was coming. The piston was up to here. So that's these pictures are not all mine. No? By far. I like the one on the left. Honestly speaking, even if you don't have the arrow, and even if you don't figure out there is a sort of valve recession, at least you can see that the depth or the height is not the same. So this one has been through the inside much more significantly, and indeed you have the valve seat is quite flat here, and here you have a quite steady edge. Valve cracks, a bit of torching. Well, I mean, the used oil analysis is not going to help you here. Honestly speaking, even the boroscopic inspection, you have so much combustion issues here. Yeah, it's out of control, but at least you know which valve is to be replaced.
Yeah.
That's also if you don't want to remove all the cylinder heads. Oops. Oops.
This is also another evidence piston on J420. This is one of the last micro analysis where we clearly see on the piston the micro of the valves, which is rotating when it's moving, and it's designed on the piston. This sort of silhouette due to the deposit that is open. So if you have a touch, make it. And this is typical for the
1%
series. And this is the respective.
The corresponding piston.
The corresponding pistons. And this is one of the problems. Why we got this is a school case. This engine has been running for quite a long time. The competitor product 1% ash level in a series 4, which is designed for 0.5% ash. So
double quantity of ash.
Yeah. And the problem with this engine is they didn't say that 0.5% is because the space between the top dead point, the piston, and the head is extremely small. So the Series 4 gearbucket is extremely sensitive to high ash product. So really need to stay on 0.5% ash. And if you have problem with the gas in terms of conditioning of the gas. So you have, for instance, high H2S product. You can, for a while, use 1% ash product to cope with high acidity of the gas, but you cannot last longer, because otherwise we are really going toward this kind of problem in the combustion chamber.
It's an easy finding, but indeed when you look at these ash deposits here, it's a bit flaky.
Yeah.
You know, flaky, cloudy sort of thing compared to the one we saw before, which was very homogeneous and very thin layer. And there is no doubt that this engine has been running with an oil which is with a too high ash content.
The deposits are soft deposits.
Yes, they are
Soft,
yeah, they are soft. You can.
Yeah, because I
It's
imagine
very
there is
very flaky. You remove them by flakes if you like.
Because I'm thinking if the valve is touching the piston head, I mean you should have either broken or embedded.
No, but sometimes it's like a footprint in the snow if you like. It depends the depth and what's the clearance remaining. I mean if there indeed in this latest design, if the clearance is extremely small to provide this very high DMEP at the end, then I do remember seeing a piston head with some marks of each valve, boom 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 boom, like a stamp if you like. How detrimental, how does that foul the valve? It's probably not good, but maybe just this layer may just be the one which is compressed, but it's not a good sign anyway. It's not supposed to touch at all. So.
Can I ask something at this point of time?
Of course.
If we have lubricant low ash,
Yes.
0.5,
Yeah.
but during the operation of the engine, the concentration of H2S are going too high. For example, instead of 200 ppms, 7 or more 100 ppms. Are we going to face high quality of ash in the valves and pistons? Because we have
No.
a lot of sulfur in H2S.
It's going to drop dramatically your oil life, and if you monitor it through the TAN increase, TBN decrease, and so on, that's the way you're going to have a look to see that your oil life is going to be dramatically shortened. But in terms H2S does not have any specific, is not going to recombine with ash or whatsoever. Silicon will. Silicon byproducts like the oxides will recombine with the ash to form bigger amount of deposits. But the H2S problem is the acidity that it entails.
Okay.
So it's going, apart from the corrosive aspect on the hardware itself, the only way or the quickest way to assess a change in the gas quality like that is the oil life. And that's what I said before. Most of the time we have oil life changing from, well, I used to drain my engines every 2,000 hours, now I need to do it every 800 hours. That's a very common case. What happened with your oil? It's not the same quality. Well, it's basically swapping the cause and the consequence. I mean, the cause is not the oil change; it's probably the gas quality change that impaired the oil life.
Hopefully, in the field they can observe the concentration of H2S, because every
it's a big deal.
operation they
No.
have the.
Yes, yes.
As far as I know,
Gas analysis are very expensive.
All the sites from gas analyzers.
Gas online gas analyzers.
every half an hour that they take.
Now, yes.
Okay.
It depends from site to site. Make you an example. I have been working in Romania for quite a lot of time. And there we are lubricating a lot of engines in the field extraction, okay, oil pumping. And there, those engines are fed with the PITS gas, so gas coming from the stuff. So they get some device to, take in account the quality of H2S, but the problem is that the bits is changing time to time, so you can have extremely variable content of H2S. So you can go from 0 to 1,500 ppms, and sometimes you run the oil, and they cannot over there measure in continuous the H2S. For this reason, sometimes they had, the oil life was 2,000 hours, suddenly after 300 hours the oil was dead. Dead means really dead. TBN 0.5, EPH 1, okay, TIN 4, destroyed, completely gone. And another point, just make a clarification, when we talk about acidity, we don't talk about acidity of the H2S, because the H2S itself is a very weak acid. Okay? What is creating the acidity is the combustion of H2S, is the sulfuric anhydride or sulfurous.
So sulfur H2S byproduct.
Yeah.
The valve seats, for instance, you have this sort of gray spots, but that's what is also asked. That's the purpose of the Ashkantan. That's to at some point to protect the valve from recession.
Sorry, where is the oil leak?
These dark. No, that's the valve, and down here, and here apparently there is some oily that makes the instead of being dry like this, it's being wetted. And here you have pretty heavy. I think one of the root cause for this valve torching here is actually probably the carbon deposits which prevented the valve from cooling down from good enough cooling. So basically there was sort of, and then you had a sort of a crack. Then you have the gas, exhaust gas passing by, and of course then the compression spray going is dropping very quickly, but not enough to prevent these very extremely high gases or combustion gases to go through the exhaust while it's not supposed to be open. So you have this. That's nice for art, but for me,
Not for operation.
operation guys are screaming. Maintenance guys, I think it's service people are easy. It's an easy to find issue, and that's more problematic. A crack in cylinder head. Well, I think this engine has seen some issues before in terms of coolant leakage and so on.
This crack comes from
Overheating, metallurgy of this special weakness. It's full of holes anyway. To be
because
cool,
mechanically it's very difficult to.
yeah, it's
From a mechanical point of view, from edging parameters of
that's not what it's
pressure,
meant.
it's impossible to create.
You must have a defect somewhere that basically expanded. Cylinder head without ignition. I'm not familiar with this one. Probably is it a sort of
Combination of parts.
yeah? If there is no ignition in this piston, I'm not sure what should be the effect, honestly speaking. They still believe that you have some burnt deposits here, or it's the metallurgy which is being burnt. I don't know. Color is a bit blue.
Yes, but it's
Some
the
area.
same from the exhaust.
Yes, it's the same everywhere.
It's not
That's a good comment actually. A good way to figure out which valves are the exhaust compared to the intake is to look at the deposit amount, how dense, how grey they are, or how white they are. Admission is supposed to be less hot than the exhaust, so exhaust will oil vapors including the ash content, will burn more easily on the exhaust valves. So they are supposed to be a bit wider than the intake valves. Coolant leakage on. What is that? Is it a valve, you think? And that's a valve as well? Again, the breach in terms of uniformity of the deposit is a sort of a symptom. So, whatever the root cause might be, you have something happening in this area that is, of course, obviously not happening anywhere else. So that's what I discussed a bit earlier. It's again, that's the summary for this deck. But typically, it provides a very good insight when you can. It's even more powerful when you can combine a boroscopic inspection with used oil analysis data. Then, from the oil perspective, at least, you have as big a picture as you can, and that's usually pretty meaningful. Again, I'm sorry to say, but for those very latest lubricant developed with these high BMEP engines, a boroscopic combined with the used oil analysis results that do show some oil life extension. Okay, fair enough, but you're not going to be able to assess the deposit control within the first remove, so you still have to remove on a regular basis, especially at the beginning for new latest engine design. You still have to remove some piston completely, power units in full, in order to access to the removes. If not, the end of run. But the most challenging area nowadays is that this topman is shortened dramatically, and basically the temperature is extremely high in the first remove. You still have a lot of oil deposits nowadays. That's what we need to face. That's what we need to deal with. And the 11, and just a flavor of product development. 1107 or 1100 series. We started thinking about, well, first of all, the 1005 has been, if we are talking about the brutal truth a bit, 1005 has been withdrawn from Yanmar approved product list 6 years ago. 6 years ago, so it took quite some time to figure out the rationale and so on, although 1005 is not performing that bad compared to other long life competitor lubricants, but anyway, that's a different story. I mean, we are 6 years after the 1005 withdrawal. We are still in the process of getting a product qualified, and we have had at least 1, 2, 3, 4 different candidates that were not suitable enough to with deposit control. So that's not. That's a bit of recipe. you developed product, Giovanni. You can discuss how touchy this and tricky this part can be sometimes. But although we have a pretty long-standing experience in gas engine oil development, our large development was back 10 years ago with 1005, and recently we are struggling a bit with product development. We are quite comfortable because the 1100 series has been launched already 1 year ago now. 1105, as if you remember, is fully approved. So 1107 should be as well, but it's been paved of a lot of hurdles on the way to get product development finalized. Boroscopic, let's say, additional service that we can offer for gas engine oil customers, gas engine market at large. It's more or less the question and answer time now. So if you feel free and don't be shy to ask any sort of question you may have. If you are here today, it means that you probably have a sort of an interest in learning or hearing a bit from us. So if you need some complemental information, don't be shy to ask, and we'll be happy to pass the microphone, or without microphone, by the way. It's not mandatory either. Do you have questions?
Let me ask a about mobile server typical analysis. I mean, let's say the early analysis schedule. For example, OEMs are indicating to take oil samples every 250 hours. On the contrary, what we see in the market, it's the average we are at 500. In some cases, when the OD, the drain interval is something like 2,000, we extend it more to 1,000, 1,500. What is the rule? If there is a rule, what is, let's say, the best?
Well, there is indeed, for instance, for the market, there is a proper standard, saying at least in the beginning how to sample the oil. I would say that, generally speaking, once you have assessed the oil life, you can also take the decision that increase the oil sampling periods.
And this again, sorry. And this again is, I mean, if we use the analysis from the preventive point of maintenance, I mean, in case something happens in between, for example, if we take an oil sample at the first 1,000 hours, so there is always a possibility that something happens at 400, 500. I mean, this must be a drive.
Yeah, I mean it's all the more true for biogases. Yeah, sure, of course.
About Bloomberg engines. About the Bloomberg engines. The rule is at biogas maximum every 250 hours. This is the rule.
Yeah.
For natural gas, 300 hours.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
again,
is short.
Again, or 2 weeks or something like that. So if we have to have some, you made several points in your question. First thing is that you need to consider the gas. If you are natural gas and you can reasonably expect a very steady gas quality, you can more easily play with the period of time until which you want to adjust your oil sampling. When you're and that's the reason for Envara, what does that mean? It's just because you have absolutely no clue, or you may expect some gas quality variation and significant variation. We already talked about it during the day. I mean, if you want to be able to grab some information through the used oil analysis, you need to have a pretty high frequency of sampling. Otherwise you're going to have some stuff and you have the TPM drop down as low as something, which means that you have absolutely no more reserve of alkalinity in your oil, and your engine is just getting corroded, typically, or the likelihood of corrosion attack is pretty